So, I'm back with a video. This time I'm going to be reviewing WrestleMania 22. This one is from 2006. It took place in Chicago. Here's the cover. Spine. As you can see, the match is April 2nd, 2006, Chicago. Let me just get the insert out. Yeah, so I'll be doing a bit more of an in-depth review, talking about each match individually. So yeah, we start off, as every WrestleMania, with someone singing American the Beautiful. But the first match we have is Kane and the Big Show versus Carlito and Chris Masters for the World Tag Team Championships. Yes, it's quite a short match, pretty basic, something that you would, a standard tag team match that you would see on Raw or SmackDown. Nothing too special. I think it could have had a different match open this Mania because it doesn't really get you pumped. It's not big enough, if you know what I mean. It's just a standard tag team match. Kane and Big Show win. Kane hit Carlito with a chokeslam for the finish. Actually, in the match, Kane does a drop kick, which was, quite impressive. But yeah, nothing too special here. Just a standard match. As I said before, they could have had to say better as an opener. But then we move on to Jonathan Coachman interviewing Shawn Michaels, where Shawn Michaels pretty much talks about his upcoming match with Vince McMahon and, the stuff that he'll do to Vince. And it's quite a good promo. It gets you excited for the upcoming match. After the promo, we move on to the Money in the Bank ladder match, which, in my opinion, I think that should have opened the show, because it gets people excited for the rest of the show, and it's good to start off with, a big match where obviously the winner gets the Money in the Bank contract. So yeah, I think they should have started with this match instead of the World Tag Team Championship match. But in this match we have Ric Flair, Rob Van Dam, Shelton Benjamin, Matt Hardy, Finlay and Bobby Lashley. The match is quite short. I think they do a lot of cool spots, but I think it's a bit crammed in because I do believe the match is under 10 minutes. I think it's the shortest ladder match or Money in the Bank ladder match ever. So yeah, that's why it feels crammed in, but it's still good. It's a Money in the Bank match, so it's obviously going to be good, exciting, but I just believe they could have maybe still had the same spots, but had it a bit longer, and the match would have been better. But yeah, it was good. Obviously, RVD and Shelton Benjamin doing most of the high-flying stuff, the dives and all that stuff. In the match, Ric Flair actually takes a suplex off the ladder, which nowadays we've seen this spot done, but it's still impressive considering his age. So after that, he gets taken out the match. He comes back in later. Yeah, there's a lot of spots in this match. I'm not going to go through them all, but obviously you've seen the ladder match. You know what type of stuff to expect. Big spots, but in a short amount of time. Yeah, Matt Hardy does a side effect off the ladder on Finlay. RVD also does a frog splash off the ladder, as you can see here. And ultimately goes on to win this ladder match, which he would go on to cash in his contract at ECW One Night Stand later that year, where he would beat John Cena for the WWE Championship. So after that match, we have Josh Matthews interviewing Mean Gene Okerlund, who was obviously inducted to the Hall of Fame, class of 2006. And moving on, we have the Hall of Fame inductees, as they do every year. They get all the Hall of Fame inductees out and then introduce them to honour them. Bret Hart wasn't actually there because they said apparently he felt uncomfortable with participating in or something, even though he was in the actual Hall of Fame. Here you have the Hall of Fame class, so you have the Blackjacks, Vern Gagne, William Perry, Sensational Sherry, Tony Atlas, Mean Gene Okerlund, Eddie Guerrero and Bret the Hitman Hart. So after that we move on to the Chris Benoit versus JBL match for the United States Championship. Nothing too special here. To be honest, there's a lot of suplexes. If you watch the highlights from that match, half of that match is just them hitting each other with suplexes. It's really basic stuff. Nothing to really get into. There's not much to talk about. It's just basic match. Sort of like the tag team match before, saying that you would see on a Raw or SmackDown. Quite basic. But the finish comes when Chris Benoit has JBL in the crossface and JBL rolls through into a pin and holds the ropes for the win, which it's an alright finish. JBL winning the United States Championship. Then we move on to what some people say is the best match on this card. I'm not sure about that. For me, it's between this match and the main event, but we'll get onto that later. It's a hardcore match, which it's actually Falls Count Anywhere. This is a bit off the topic, but WWE, they do a lot of these hardcore street fight, no holds barred, extreme rules, which they're all pretty much the same thing, just with different names, which I don't really understand. Can't they just pick one name and stick to it? But yeah, I guess it's just branding. Obviously, Mick Foley known as a hardcore legend, so they just put it as a hardcore match. So yeah, it's a hardcore match with Mick Foley versus Edge. It's what you can expect. There's a lot of weapons, lots of hardcore extreme spots, so you could say. There's a part where Edge spears Mick Foley, but Mick Foley has barbed wire wrapped around him. Edge starts bleeding from his arm because obviously the barbed wire, which I don't understand, because he still got speared, and even though he had the barbed wire wrapped around him, it would surely hurt him as well. So that spot don't really make that much sense to me. Like, yeah, Edge's arm is going to be bleeding because obviously he's speared the barbed wire pretty much, but Mick Foley would be hurt as well. So I don't really understand that spot. Don't make that much sense to me. I see what they were going for, but it's all like in WCW when Goldberg speared Bret Hart and Bret Hart had the metal sheet to protect him, which that made sense because Goldberg hit metal, but here the barbed wire would go like into Mick Foley's stomach as well. So yeah, I don't really understand that spot. I see what they were going for, but I think they could have done it a bit better. It don't make that much sense, if I'm being honest. Like, if you think about it. Yeah, another thing which, this just looked brutal. Like, I've seen Mick Foley do this before, but he took a hip toss into the steel steps, which, yeah, as I said, I've seen him do that spot before, but it just always looks like there's something that could go horribly wrong and get, a horrible injury, which it's always scary seeing him take that bump. Yeah, later on in the match, Edge gets some thumbtacks, so obviously he takes the bump into the thumbtacks. Then we have Mick Foley doing the mandible claw with barbed wire wrapped around his hand. Yeah, it's quite, a bloody hardcore match. It's what you could expect with these two face each other, with Edge and Mick Foley in a hardcore match. It's, if you like hardcore wrestling, sort of ECW type stuff, then I think this match is for you, and I think you'll enjoy it. Obviously, the finish, everyone knows the spot. Lita sets the table on fire, and then Edge spears Mick Foley through the flaming table. Everyone's seen that. It's been replayed so many times on different, highlight reels and hype packages that WWE does for, like, TLC shows, or you've definitely seen the spot. Yeah, since it's a false count anywhere, Edge pins Mick Foley, and Edge wins the match. Edge walks away, bloody as hell. Mick Foley bloody as well, but if you like hardcore wrestling, you will enjoy this match. So then we have Booker T with Sharmell in the backstage area. Then, we've got Todd Grisham doing an interview, and we move on to the Boogeyman versus Booker T and Sharmell handicap match, which it's the shortest match on the show. I think it only went like 4 minutes, so it's sort of a throwaway match. There's not really much point on having it on this card. I think if they scrapped that match and maybe given a bit more time to a Money in the Bank match, I think that would have been better. But yeah, there's nothing really to talk about. Boogeyman eats some worms, pins Booker T, and that's about it. But after that match, we move on to the women's title with Trish Stratus and Mickie James. It's obviously the matches most remembered for the finish, which is actually, edited out on the DVD. Most of you will probably know what I mean. Yeah, despite the, weird finish that it had on this match that to be edited out, it's actually a really good match. Yeah, it's a good women's match. Obviously, this is where Mickie James was at her best, at least character-wise. She was at her best. Obviously, she had just debuted and she was doing the whole stalking Trish Stratus, crazy fan gimmick thing. And Trish Stratus is just always great, so you can expect a really good match, and it was. Yeah, overall just a good match. Nothing really else to say about it, just good. They have a Mr. McMahon promo with him and his family in the dressing room, where he obviously is pretending to pray to God. Again, hyping up the Shawn Michaels Mr. McMahon match. So later we move on to, obviously, the streak. I think it'll take his 13-0 at this point. Here he becomes 14-0, if I'm correct. So it's a short match. It's not one of Undertaker's best matches. I don't think him and Mark Henry really worked too well together. I don't think they really worked well together. Like, it's not a terrible match, but, you're expecting better with the Undertaker's streak, especially the matches he would go on to have after this match, or even the year before with Randy Orton. You would expecting slightly better, but yeah, this was quite a short match. Yeah, you've got two big guys, so it's not really going to be fast paced or any high flying stuff. Although a really cool spot that stands out in this match is when Undertaker does a dive. You know, Undertaker's over the top rope dive, but he does it over the casket as well. That just looks insane. He got so much height on that. He went so far. It's just crazy how a guy his size could do, you know, pretty much cruiserweight moves like that. But yeah, the finish comes when Taker powerbombs Mark Henry. They do the whole thing where Mark Henry's in the corner and then Undertaker picks him up for the last ride. After that, gives him a tombstone, rolls him into the casket, gets the win. It's not terrible, but it's quite short, and it's not, you know, what you would expect to bear from the Undertaker. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Mark Henry, but I don't think he's the right opponent for the Undertaker. And he never really seemed like a threat to the streak anyway, so it took away from the excitement. It's one of the things that makes the streak so, or it did make the streak so exciting, is if you had the possibility of it ending, like with the career versus streak match and things like that. But here you sort of knew that Undertaker would win, so it made it a bit predictable. So after that match, we move on to the no holds barred match with Shawn Michaels versus Mr. McMahon. So obviously at the start, Mr. McMahon's promoting the Muscle and Fitness magazine, which he's obviously got the cover off. Gets smashed with the magazine over his head by Shawn Michaels, and that's sort of how the match kicks off. Obviously, Shawn Michaels beating up on Mr. McMahon makes loads of sense, because Shawn Michaels obviously is a full-time wrestler, Vince McMahon is not. So the Spirit Squad get involved. They do that weird thing where they throw Shawn Michaels up. I think that was their sort of finish. So yeah, the Spirit Squad is beating up on Shawn Michaels, but Shawn makes a comeback, gets rid of all 5 of them, which makes them look really weak. Like, I get that that's sort of their thing, they're male cheerleaders, but still, there's 5 of them. If there's 5 of them, they should be able to beat him up, even though it's Shawn Michaels, but it just made them look really weak, and they were all outside the ring. Shawn Michaels gets throws Kenny Dykstra, I think it was, out of the ring, and he does the whole, you know, flip over the top rope, which it was a huge oversell, because you never see anyone do that. He just threw him over the top rope, and he did the whole flip onto the rest of the Spirit Squad. Like, it looked cool, but it wasn't believable. It was a bit cartoonish for me, that, you know, he just throws him out of the ring and this guy just goes flying. Like, it looked cool, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Then in the match, Mr. McMahon gets his belt off, starts whipping Shawn Michaels with it, strangles him with it. After, you know, he beats him up with the belt for a few minutes, he goes for a switch and music, but he gets blocked. Then later on, Shane McMahon gets involved, and this is where Vince McMahon was doing his whole kiss my ass club thing, so he wanted, you know, Shawn Michaels to kiss his backside, but it ended up being Shane. Yeah, Shawn Michaels ended up putting Shane's face in Mr. McMahon's ass. Very fun, very, you know, Mr. McMahon sports entertainment type deal. After that, Shane McMahon gets handcuffed to the bottom rope by Shawn Michaels, and this is where the ending spot comes in, which takes quite a while, because he goes under the ring, gets a ladder, then goes again, gets a bigger ladder, gets all the tables, so it takes a long time before he actually sets the spot up. When he does the spot, it looks really good, because Mr. McMahon's laid out on the table with a trash can on his head, and Shawn Michaels does an elbow drop off the top of the, you know, the huge ladder, so the spot looks really cool, but the setup sort of took away from the realism, especially how Mr. McMahon stayed down for all that time that it took to set up. Yeah, after that huge jump, Shawn Michaels hits Mr. McMahon with sweet chin music, pins him, gets the win. To me, that match went on for a little bit too long, maybe a few minutes shorter. Like, it was a good match, but I think they just gave it a little bit too much time, especially as I said with the setup of there was a lot of things happening in this match, like Spirit Squad getting involved, the Kiss My Ass Club, Shane getting involved, all of that stuff, loads of stuff happening, but you have all this stuff happening, and then you have just him setting up the spot for a while before you actually get to the end, and that sort of takes away from the match. And yeah, I would have just had it a little bit shorter, because it didn't feel like it dragged on, but it felt like it was longer than it should have been. But it's a good match anyway. It's, you know, your typical sports entertainment Vince McMahon match. So then we have the SmackDown main event for the world title. Moving on to Disc 2 with Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton. The match starts by Randy Orton hitting Kurt Angle with the title. And from there it's lots of, you know, fast pace, huge spots. You have Kurt Angle doing the triple suplex where Rey Mysterio just goes flying. Insane looking spot there. Very fast pace, lots of spot. Ray does a lot of crazy bumps in this match. He does takes an angle slam onto the outside. We have a few near falls, one of which when Randy Orton hits Kurt Angle with the RKO, but Kurt kicks out. And the finish of this match is Rey Mysterio getting the 619 on Randy Orton for the win. You know, Rey Mysterio getting the big win, finally winning the World Heavyweight title. His reign might have not been as good, but the moment of him winning was quite nice to see him holding up, you know, the big gold belt. And this was obviously during the whole Eddie passing time. This was during the time where Eddie passed away, so it was sort of to honour Eddie Guerrero as well, because Rey Mysterio won the Rumble, which came in at number 1 or number 2, I believe, to obviously honour Eddie Guerrero, and then he went on to win the World Heavyweight title. So it was a cool moment to see. I think this is where they should have ended the whole Eddie Guerrero thing, because later I think they just began to, you know, try to get as much as they could out of it for the storyline, which I think they should have just left this as to honour Eddie Guerrero, and that's where they should have left it, not dragging it out into storylines with Chavo Guerrero and stuff like that. But lots of people have different opinions on that. About the match itself though, I think it went about 10 minutes, maybe a bit less than 10 minutes, which this is the match that I think needed, out of all these matches on the card, needed more time. If they scrapped the Booker T Boogeyman match and they gave 5 more minutes to this match, I think that could have been the match of the night, but it wasn't. It was just sort of okay, but it could have been a lot better if obviously they gave it time. So it saw some of the million back into a few ass cram, but it definitely needed a little more time. Develop the story and the match just needed more time, but that's the only problem with it. It was a good match, but if you want it to be a great match, you need to give it more time. But it was good nonetheless. Obviously, most people won't remember the actual match, they'll just remember Rey Mysterio winning it at the end. So then we have Triple H and John Cena warming up, obviously hyping up the main event. The next match, after that we have Tori Wilson versus Candice Michelle in a Playboy pillow fight. This was obviously back in the day when, before the whole women's revolution, women's evolution, all that stuff happened. So, you know, the less said about that, the better. But it's weird looking back, like, how WWE used to treat women versus how they treat women now. Now, they would never do something like that, but back in the day it was commonplace. But it's good to see women's wrestling progress, because back then it was just a piss break before the main event. Now the women's matches actually matter. It's good to see how far WWE has come with treating women. And then we move on to the main event, WWE Championship match, John Cena versus Triple H. First of all, before I talk about the match, I want to talk about the actual entrances. Obviously, Triple H has his entrance where he's sitting on the throne. And then John Cena has his gangster entrance where CM Punk is there as a cameo, which most people already know. But it's just sort of cool to see, you know, CM Punk first sort of big WWE appearance, even though he wasn't wrestling, so, you know, like before they were famous sort of thing. The crowd very much behind Triple H. This was back when, you know, the Cena hate was really starting to come on. Obviously, last year, John Cena won the WWE Championship. That's back when people were cheering, but now they've started to, you know, dislike John Cena, and this is really where the John Cena hate starts coming in. So pretty much the whole crowd is wanting Triple H to win, even though Triple H is supposed to be, you know, the heel in this match. He's by far the fan favourite. There's not really much spots to talk about in this match, but the match itself is really good. There's a lot of good storytelling. I mean, that's what you can expect between John Cena and Triple H. It's really good. I think Triple H pushes John Cena into the ref, gives him a low blow, and that's where the near fall starts coming in, because Triple H gets the hammer, hits John with the hammer, one to kick out. There's another near fall where John Cena hits the AA. Yeah, there's not many spots in this match, but it's a good, storytelling wise match. John Cena gets the STFU in for the win. The match went about 20 minutes, I'll say, maybe a bit more. To me, it was probably the best match on the card. I know some people prefer Edge versus Mick Foley, but I don't know, I think they're both sort of level for me, but this was Edge versus Mick Foley was a lot more spot focused. This was a lot more storytelling, storyline focused. So yeah, that's the main event for this show, and obviously after you have the recap music video, which they do for every WrestleMania. So my overall thoughts on this WrestleMania are that it's a good show. There's nothing like that. There's a few matches that I just saw there, like the Chris Benoit, JBL, nothing really stands out about that. Booker T, Boogeyman, and then obviously the Playboy Pillow fight, which we won't talk about, but they're sort of there, which is bad. I think the worst thing about this show, not that this show is bad, but the worst thing about it is the timings of the matches. I think some matches got too much time, like Shawn Michaels, Mr. McMahon, and some matches didn't get enough time, like the World Heavyweight Title Triple Threat match. But that's my biggest issue with this show, is the timing of it, how much time each match got. And another thing, which I think it's, for me personally, why I don't think this WrestleMania is as good as some people say, because I don't think it's a bad WrestleMania. I think it's just sort of in good / average. I think it's good at WrestleMania, but it's not one of the greats. I think what's missing from this show is that one, 5-star classic match, but that really good match. Like the year before, we had Shawn Michaels vs Kurt Angle. You have good matches, but you're missing, that classic great match that you would expect from it. You would expect at least one to be on a WrestleMania card, but this one has lots of good matches, but it doesn't have really, a great, tremendous match that you would look back on and say was one of the best. No, overall, it's a good show. I would recommend you to watch this WrestleMania. Even though it does have a few problems, it's an enjoyable watch. So yeah, that's going to do it for this review. See, if there's any more shows you'd like me to review, just tell me and I'll, try and watch it and review it for you. But that's going to do it for this video. See you in the next one.